The sound comes first, a terrifying symphony of screams that rips through the humid air of the jungle canopy. It is not the sound of one animal, but of two ancient dynasties locked in a conflict that should not be happening. This is the sound of a world turned upside down. On the forest floor, a maelstrom of black fur and flashing teeth. A silverback gorilla, a creature of immense power, a living mountain of muscle and bone, roars in fury and pain. His world is collapsing. He is not fighting a leopard or a rival male. He is besieged, swarming him, a blur of agile, intelligent, and unnervingly coordinated attackers. They are chimpanzees. For decades, primatologists observed these two great ape species living in a state of tolerant, almost respectful, avoidance. They shared the same forests, ate from the same trees, but they kept their distance. The rules were understood. But here, in Gabon's Loango National Park, the rules have been broken. This is not a territorial squabble. This is not a chance encounter gone wrong. This is an organized assault. A hunt. 27 chimpanzees, moving with a single, terrifying purpose, are systematically dismantling a family of gorillas. They flow like a river around the silverback's defense, their target not the great male himself, but the females. And the infants they carry. What you are seeing is the impossible. The first time in recorded history that scientists have witnessed chimpanzees forming a coalition to engage in lethal, cooperative warfare against gorillas. It is a behavior so new, so shocking, it has sent tremors through the world of primatology. This isn't just an attack. It is a 9-day campaign of terror. A war. And as the violence reaches its devastating crescendo, one question hangs heavier than the jungle air. Why? What could drive our closest living relatives to commit such calculated, brutal acts against their cousins? The answer lies buried in the secrets of the forest. An answer that will forever change our understanding of the line between ape and man. To understand how the peace was so brutally shattered, you must first understand the world in which it existed. This is Loango National Park, on the coast of Gabon, Central Africa. A vast, green mosaic of pristine rainforest, shimmering lagoons, and untouched beaches. It is often called Africa's last Eden, a sanctuary where life flourishes in breathtaking abundance. For millennia, this forest has been governed by ancient rhythms. The wet season brings a bounty of fruit, fueling the lives of the creatures that call this place home. The canopy is a bustling metropolis of monkeys and birds. On the forest floor, herds of elephants carve paths through the undergrowth, and shy forest buffalo emerge at dusk. But towering above them all are the two great ape titans of Loango, the western lowland gorilla and the central chimpanzee. Here, their territories overlap, a rare and delicate ecological arrangement. The gorilla family is a portrait of tranquil power. Led by a dominant silverback, their lives revolve around a slow, peaceful search for vegetation. The silverback, a male researchers have observed for years, is a bastion of calm authority. His immense strength is used not for aggression but for protection. He guides his family, a harem of females and their young, with a quiet confidence, his presence alone a deterrent to most threats. Their bonds are deep, their days marked by play, grooming, and rest. They are the stoic, gentle giants of this forest. The chimpanzee community is a different proposition entirely. They are a society of high drama, complex politics, and startling intelligence. For over a decade, the Loango Chimpanzee Project, led by primatologists like Tobias Deschner and Simone Pica, has documented their lives. This particular community is large, numbering nearly 50 individuals. They are cunning tool users, capable of sophisticated problem solving. But their defining characteristic is their social dynamism. Alliances are constantly forged and broken. Power is won and maintained through strategy, intimidation, and, when necessary, violence. They are led by a shrewd and battle-hardened alpha male, whose authority depends on the loyalty of his coalition partners. Their world is one of constant calculation. For years, these two societies coexisted. Researchers documented peaceful interactions, even playful encounters between young chimps and gorillas. They would often feed in the same colossal fruit trees, the gorillas taking the lower branches, the chimps the higher canopy. A fragile truce, born of mutual respect and an abundance of resources. But the forest is not a constant. It is a living, breathing entity, subject to change. And as the climate shifts, as fruit becomes scarcer during prolonged dry seasons, the delicate balance of this Eden begins to fray. The unspoken rules that governed Loango for generations were about to be rewritten. And no one, not the gorillas, not the chimpanzees, and certainly not the scientists watching, was prepared for what would come next. The seeds of war are not sown overnight. They germinate in the dark, fed by scarcity and suspicion. In Loango, the first signs of change were subtle, easily dismissed as anomalies. A longer, harsher dry season had descended upon the park. The fruit trees that both apes relied on were less productive. What was once a banquet had become a rationed meal, and hunger sharpens the mind and the temper. Researchers began to note a change in the chimpanzees' demeanor. Their patrols of their territory borders became more frequent, more aggressive. The pant hoots that echoed through the trees carried a harder, more menacing edge. Fights within the community grew more frequent and more vicious over scraps of food. The social fabric was stretched thin, and the alpha male had to constantly reassert his dominance over restless young males eager to prove their worth. The first direct confrontation was almost mundane. A prized atanga tree, heavy with its final, precious fruit, became a point of contention. The gorilla family arrived first, the silverback positioning himself at the base as his family began to feed. Moments later, a large patrol of chimpanzee males arrived. In the past, they might have waited their turn, or simply climbed to the upper branches. But not today. The lead chimpanzee, a powerful male in the alpha's coalition, strode forward, slapping the ground and letting out a volley of intimidating calls. The silverback rose to his full height, a gesture of pure, immovable power. He beat his chest, a deep, resonant pock 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 that was less a threat and more a statement of fact. This is my space. The chimps, for a moment, seemed to back down. They screeched and hurled branches from a distance, a display of frustration, before melting back into the jungle. No blood was shed, but a line had been crossed. The unspoken agreement of shared resources had been challenged. Field notes from the Loango project describe this incident as a turning point. The chimpanzees had tested a boundary, and while they had retreated, they had not been truly defeated. They had assessed the silverback's strength, gauged his reaction. It was an intelligence-gathering mission. Weeks passed. The tension simmered. The encounters grew more frequent, the displays more hostile. The chimps began to shadow the gorilla family, tracking their movements through the forest. This was a classic chimpanzee tactic, typically reserved for rival chimp communities. They were now applying the principles of warfare to their giant neighbors. The gorillas became visibly stressed. The silverback was constantly on edge, his peaceful foraging disrupted by the need for ceaseless vigilance. Then came the second incident. It was quicker, more violent. A younger gorilla wandered too far from the group, engrossed in a patch of wild ginger. 3 male chimpanzees, moving with stealth and speed, ambushed it. It wasn't an attempt to kill, but to terrify. They chased the young ape, screaming, biting at its heels. The silverback charged, a force of nature, scattering the attackers. But not before one chimp landed a deep gash on the young gorilla's leg. First blood. A psychological barrier had been broken. The chimpanzees had learned they could inflict pain. They had learned that the gorillas, for all their power, were vulnerable. And they had learned that a coordinated attack, even a small one, could sow chaos. The forest no longer felt like a shared home. It had become a chessboard, and the chimpanzees were beginning to think several moves ahead. In any conflict, there is a moment where the possibility of peace dies. A point of no return, where simmering hostility ignites into open war. In Loango, that moment arrived on a hot, breathless morning. It was not a grand battle over territory, but a dispute that escalated with shocking speed, driven by the chimpanzees' newfound aggression and strategic audacity. The catalyst was a grove of Saba, Florida, a vine whose fruit is a rare delicacy, rich in sugar and fat. During this harsh dry season, it was a treasure beyond price. The gorilla family, having been harassed for weeks, had found this secluded spot. For a few hours, there was a semblance of peace. The silverback stood guard, but the infants played, and the females foraged with a rare sense of security. But they were being watched. The chimpanzee patrol that had been shadowing them was larger than usual. It was not just a few males, it was a coalition. According to the Loango Project's census, 27 individuals were moving together. Males, females, even adolescents. It was a war party. They gathered on a ridge overlooking the grove, hidden in the dense foliage. There was no chaotic screaming, no random displays. Instead, a tense, focused silence descended. The alpha male moved among his subordinates, making eye contact, reinforcing the group's cohesion. It was the chillingly calm preamble to a storm. Researchers watching from a distance recognized this behavior. It was the same coordinated, strategic preparation they had seen before chimpanzee groups launched lethal raids on their neighbors. The horrifying realization dawned. They were preparing to raid the gorillas. The trigger was a young, ambitious male chimp. Perhaps seeking to gain status, perhaps simply driven by hunger, he broke from the group and made a dash for a low-hanging vine laden with fruit. He was fast, but the silverback was faster. With a deafening roar, the great ape charged, not to kill, but to drive the thief away. He swatted the chimp, sending him tumbling back toward the ridge. For the chimpanzees, this was the signal. It was the provocation they had been waiting for. Before the silverback could even return to his position, the ridge exploded. 27 chimpanzees poured down into the grove. The air shattered with pant hoots, screams, and war cries. The gorillas were completely surrounded. The attack was a masterpiece of tactical coordination. The larger, more powerful male chimps engaged the silverback directly, a swirling mass of bodies designed to occupy the defender. They used hit-and-run tactics, darting in to bite and tear, then retreating before he could land a devastating blow. They were a pack of wolves, wearing down a bear. Simultaneously, a second wave of chimpanzees, including the faster females and adolescents, bypassed the main fight. Their objective was clear and terrifying. They targeted the gorilla mothers, who were desperately trying to shield their infants. The grove became a scene of pure chaos. The silverback fought with incredible courage, but he was one against many. For every chimp he threw aside, two more took its place. He was being strategically isolated from the family he was trying to protect. This wasn't a fight for fruit anymore. It had never been about the fruit. It was a calculated act of violence, the culmination of weeks of rising tension. The chimpanzees had decided that coexistence was no longer an option. The only path forward was conquest. The war had begun.